Hello lovelies, in our last video we looked at some anomalies in science that point to our current paradigm of materialism being insufficient to explain about what is happening in our skies and in reality, like how time is not what we think and how it turns out that humans en masse are psychic. Well, what if the universe isn't what we think? What if the universe itself is alive? Now, not in the way we think of life, organic, carbon-based, familiar, but something far older and larger and more mysterious. Could intelligence exist all around us, hiding in plain sight, simply because we don't know how to see it? I think so. Today, we'll challenge some of our deeply ingrained assumptions, okay? Assumptions that are not just incorrect, but actively distort our understanding of non-human intelligence and the very nature of consciousness itself. Today, we're going to take off those mucky, dirty materialist goggles, wipe them down, and start to see things clearly. Okay, here we go. Matter. We are obsessed with it. Our lives revolve around it, acquiring it, consuming it, dissecting it. We measure it, categorize it, and experiment on it, and even smash it into the tiny littlest pieces, thinking that we're going to understand the secrets of the universe itself. But did you know that matter, well, specifically atomic matter, matter that we're all obsessed with, makes up less than 0.1% of the entire universe? Let me put that into perspective, okay? Imagine Santa brings you a stunning 8K TV for Christmas, a marvel of technology, right? Capable of displaying the most breathtaking images. But instead of admiring the big picture, you zoom in so tightly that all you can see is a single pixel. That one tiny dot becomes your entire focus, and you miss the incredible complexity, vibrancy, and interconnectedness of the whole image. Well, this is our current paradigm, okay? This is our current perspective on the universe. We are fixated on the tiniest fractions of matter, atomic matter, that make up less than 0.01% of everything in the universe. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the cosmos, over 99.9%, is something we rarely even consider. It's as if we've spent centuries studying that single pixel, oblivious to the big picture. Okay, now, Robert Temple's latest book, A New Science of Heaven, opened my eyes to this idea. So today we're going to look at the 99% of what the universe is made up of in search of non-human intelligences. And that 99% is non-atomic matter, otherwise known as plasma. So what is plasma? All right, well, plasma is the fourth state of matter, distinct from solids, liquids, and gases. It's non-atomic, meaning it's made up of free electrons and ions, charged nuclei rather than whole atoms. It's dynamic and self-organizing, forming structures like filaments, vortices, that are stable yet constantly shifting. And it's everywhere. Stars, lightning, even the vast stretches of interstellar space, all are examples of plasma. In fact, plasma makes up 99% of the observable universe. Yet, despite its overwhelming presence, our materialist worldview has kept us fixated on the tiny fraction of the universe made up of atomic matter. This narrow focus has blinded us to the possibility of entirely different forms of life or intelligences hiding in plain sight. Now, when we think of life, we tend to imagine it as carbon-based, organic, and dependent on water, air, a definition shaped by what we know on Earth, right? But what if life or intelligence didn't need any of these things? Non-organic life could operate on entirely different principles, like electromagnetic interaction. It might thrive in plasma environments, relying on dynamic, self-organizing behavior as its foundation. And it could be something vastly older and larger and more intelligent than anything we've ever conceived.
Because we have to realize several key things which are different than what we think. First of all, the predominance of life forms in the universe are bound to be inorganic, not made of atoms. We are the exception in our physical form. There are very few rocky planets made of what we call physical matter, containing atoms in the universe. Of course, there may be hundreds of billions of them, but that's a mere nothing to the universe. And we need to realize that organic beings, which is what we temporarily are in our physical bodies, which I tend to call smart overcoats, our real selves being bioplasma bodies, and that's what leaves the physical body at death and continues its existence on another plane. You could describe it as another plane. We need to realize that the intelligences in the universe are cosmic, and these plasmas can form dusty, complex plasma clouds, which have the capacity to self-organize, and by the process which has become known as emergence, develop intelligence. Now, there are complex plasma clouds throughout the universe. We see them everywhere. Every star is a complex plasma, including our own sun.
This idea leads us to one of Robert Temple's most fascinating proposals, that the Kordylewski dust clouds might harbor non-human intelligence. So what are the Kordylewski dust clouds, you ask? The Kordylewski dust clouds are massive formations of dust and plasma located between the Earth and the Moon. These colossal structures, 9 times larger than Earth, exhibit behaviors that challenge our very understanding of intelligence. So what is so cool about these Kordylewski clouds, you might ask? Well, first, they can organize themselves. They form stable but constantly changing shapes, like spirals and strands, without anyone or anything controlling them. That's something we usually see in complex systems, like living things. Second, they might have a kind of memory. The plasma they're made of can remember changes that happened before and even pass that information along. It's kind of like how your brain remembers stuff and uses it later. And finally, they are actually kind of like a brain. The way their particles connect and interact using electromagnetic forces is similar to how neurons in your brain talk to each other. That means they might be able to process information on a massive scale. Robert Temple even talks about how they might work with more data than the CIA, putting it to shame. Okay. In fact, he takes it further, saying that these clouds might be like a giant cosmic library, like the Akashic Records or something, storing information about Earth's past for as long as it's been here. He even suggested they might have played a role in the creation of our planet itself. Now, that is a very big idea, and it's a complicated one, and you're going to have to get the book to understand it, but trust me, it's a fascinating idea. And if true, these clouds represent not just a scientific anomaly, but a profound rethinking of what intelligence and life might even be. So what does this mean for non-human intelligence? Well, Rupert Sheldrake has suggested that the sun, another massive ball of plasma, might be conscious.
The mechanistic materialist view is that all of nature is unconscious. And when this became the standard view in science at the scientific revolution in the 17th century, it replaced an idea that was predominant in Europe before that, which was basically an animistic view of nature. Practically all cultures have an animistic view of nature. The universe is alive, the earth is alive, animals and plants are truly alive. In the Middle Ages, there was a form of Christian animism, which is what gave rise to the great Gothic cathedrals. They have carved foliage, they have beings and creatures all over them. They were great spaces designed to alter the consciousness of those who entered them. And they were a tribute to a vision of nature as a living world, which was both the presence of a living God and was within a living God. The mechanistic view sees nature as mechanical and not alive. So I think it's important to realize that there are many forms of consciousness in an animistic view, and what we're seeing now is a revival of animism under the name panpsychism, a recognition as a form of forms of consciousness, even in electrons and atoms, that human consciousness doesn't spring out of totally unconscious universe. It emerges from levels of consciousness that go right down to the smallest things and up to the largest. Well, in that panpsychist or animist view, all self-organizing systems have some kind of mind or consciousness. And that includes large objects like the sun and the galaxy. So I think it's a traditional view that the sun is a conscious being, and so are the other stars. And we now see all the stars in our galaxy and the Milky Way as included within the whole galaxy. That itself would be a conscious being at a higher level. And all the different galaxies in the universe, billions of them, are part of the entire universe, which is also a conscious being at the most inclusive level. So the idea of the sun as a conscious being fits within this general philosophy of nature, which is becoming more and more discussed today. It's a kind of revival of animism. Within science even, and within philosophy of mind. And the sun has complex electromagnetic patterns all over its surface and its interior and in the corona around it. And most people, even materialists, think that the interface between our minds and our brains is in the electromagnetic patterns of activity. So I think the sun could well be thinking and conscious, and the interface between its mind and its body is through these electromagnetic patterns, which we can study and measure, just as we can study and measure electrical patterns in the brain.
So what are the takeaways? 1, we have an atomic obsession. Our fixation on atomic matter, which makes up less than 0.01% of the universe, limits our understanding of reality. And 2, we need to broaden our definition of life. Life doesn't need to be organic. It could exist in plasma, taking forms far beyond our imagination. And 3, the universe may be teeming with life that are older, larger, and more intelligent than we've ever considered. So in the next video, we're going to look at other scientists' discoveries of plasma phenomena and delve into the strange, conscious-like behaviors observed in these systems. Why might these intelligences be revealing themselves now? Stick around and find out, my lovelies. Subscribe, hit the bell, join me as we uncover the evidence that plasma could be the non-human intelligence we've been searching for.
When we deal with the ancient mysteries, it's not a problem that can be solved with one particular approach.
A myriad of diverse approaches are required.
The Egyptian temple can be regarded as an exhaustive, encyclopedic summary of information. It contains effectively all that can be known about the principle to which it is consecrated.
They're using key symbols that they wouldn't be using if they didn't know this stuff.
Experts in a broad spectrum of disciplines.
Art is the bridge between science and spirituality. It has no allegiance to either camp.
If you look at ancient Egypt through the eyes of an artist, you see a very different place. As soon as we started reading the message, we began to understand why there's so much gatekeeping and trolling surrounding these subjects. The ancient message is in many ways the very definition of taboo.
The ancient Egyptians understood the brain and how to achieve altered states of consciousness.
The hypnagogic state, or third force, is the way into the unconscious.
I was interested
in seeing if I could determine a biological basis of mystical states.
Our brains have been designed to allow in other realms and other realities that have been there all the time, surrounding us in every way, in all directions.
This intelligence of the heart, or this kind of consciousness up here of the two, it generates this kind of more living, dynamic perception of the world. So, and isn't that like the Uraeus crown and his Kundalini and the third eye?
Fueling astonishing revelations.
These are people who actually practice Tantra, were initiated into Tantra. And that Tantra still exists today.
The sexual energy climbs the spine to the brain, and that the result is an awakening, artistic expression, realization, enlightenment.
We see this all the time in Egypt. The pharaoh wears a diadem with the cobra head jutting forth from it.
Revelations from even the most occulted sources.
Egyptology is this curious sort of weaving together of some inaccurate esoterics woven in with some definitely inaccurate truth claims about the material nature of reality. So the upshot of that is we have the most materialist cosmology humans have ever come up with, attempting to describe almost the least materialist human cosmology we've ever come up with.
They realized that you could actually hack the operating system of the universe.
I read every single Greco-Egyptian papyri on magic that's ever been found. And it's amazing, magic could be looked at as a technology. Something you do and you get a certain result.
Egypt itself, if you think about it, the egregore of ancient Egyptian magic is quite potent, and it has survived to this day and enthralls us to this day.
Magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will.
The one topic that unites all Egyptian religious, spiritual, and magical practice is the concept of Heka.
So what it says to me when I see a gathering like this, which is truly eclectic and has brought together people from many different fields, I think that's it's a very good sign. It's a sign that the world is moving into a new area of inquiry.
Like Isis resurrecting Osiris to birth Horus, restoring order to the world, we resurrect ancient Egypt in our hour of need. Come explore the other Egypt. The resurrected Egypt. Magical Egypt.